Hey, good morning, everyone. Happy Thursday morning to you. Really hectic week. Anyway, I'm reading Brian Lewis's brand new book, Jew and Gentile Reconciled, an exploration of the 10 Northern Tribes in Pauline literature. This is not the easiest reading. It's not fourth grade level, but it's more than worth the read. Okay? Just let me recommend that to you. You can find that. Contact me and I'll tell you how to get a hold of it if you're interested in that. But like I said, very, very worthwhile read. Okay, as I promised yesterday, and by the way, my name is Don K. Preston. I'm the president of Preterist Research Institute of Ardmore, Oklahoma, and this is my morning musings. Okay, I want to not re-examine, but I want to add a little bit more to the previous video in which I responded to argument number 10 of Dr. David Hester when he went to 1 Corinthians chapter 15, and he argued that the resurrection, the physical resurrection of Jesus, demands a physical resurrection of all believers at the so-called end of time. Now, I made a couple of umbrella arguments in response to Dr. Hester's rapid-fire 23 arguments. As I've noted, his entire approach of making 23 arguments was with the full knowledge that I would not have time to get up and carefully analyze and carefully respond to every single one of those. Then he could get back up and say, see, I told you, Preston cannot answer my arguments. That proves he's a false teacher. I had predicted, by the way, months and months and months before the debate, I had predicted that would be Dr. Hester's entire approach. I told several friends, Dr. Hester will not get up and engage my arguments. He will avoid them completely. And number two, he's going to get up and in rapid style read off a whole bunch of arguments that I will not have the time to address and proclaim victory by saying Preston did not address my arguments. My predictions came true to the letter. Well, in response to Dr. Hester's claims about 1 Corinthians 15, I made two different arguments. Actually, I made more than that. But I made specifically two arguments, and here's the first one. The resurrection of 1 Corinthians 15 would be when, quote, the law, unquote, that was the, quote, strength of sin, unquote, would be removed. 1 Corinthians 15, 55 and 56. The law that was the strength of sin was the law of Moses. David Hester admitted that to me in his written response to questions that I submitted to him. That demands, therefore, that the resurrection of 1 Corinthians 15 would be when the law of Moses would be removed. Remember, Dr. David Hester admitted to me, written form, that the law that was the strength of sin in 1 Corinthians 15 was the law of Moses. Well, he's absolutely correct in that, but that destroys his eschatology. How and why? Well, because Dr. Hester says, and he said it repeatedly, although he never even attempted to prove it, and in a substantive way, he kind of threw some arguments in the direction of the argument, but he never did any exegesis. But notice this. Watch carefully now. The resurrection of 1 Corinthians 15 would be when the law that was the strength of sin would be removed. The law that was the strength of sin was the law of Moses, David Hester. Therefore, the resurrection would be when the law of Moses was removed. Dr. David Hester claimed several times in the debate that the law of Moses was nailed to the cross. Well, that's obviously false, ladies and gentlemen, because guess what? Paul was still looking for the resurrection, which means he was still looking for the end of the law of Moses. You see how that works? Do you catch the power of that? Now, look, this is absolutely 100% fatal. I made this argument 5 or 6 times in the debate. Dr. Hester never touched it, top, side, or bottom. But I made another argument from 1 Corinthians 15. I made this argument likewise at least 4 times, if my count is correct. The resurrection of 1 Corinthians 15 occurs at the end of the last days. Dr. David Hester agrees. But the resurrection of 1 Corinthians 15 would be when the law of Moses, i.e. the law that was the strength of sin, would be removed. Therefore, the end of the last days and the resurrection would be when the law of Moses was removed. If therefore the resurrection of 1 Corinthians 15 has not been fulfilled, and if the last days have not ended, it demands, ladies and gentlemen, and once again, Dr. David Hester never said one single word, literally not one word about this argument. But this demands that if the resurrection has not been fulfilled, if the last days have not ended, the law of Moses remains fully in effect. Every jot, every single tittle, every law, every command, every sacrifice, every Sabbath remains fully in effect. And so once again, from Dr. Hester's own keyboard, in response to my written questions to him, he destroyed his own eschatology. Listen, thanks so much for those of you who have ordered the book. Let me recommend one more time that for an incredible study of the resurrection and how Daniel chapter 9 proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that the resurrection occurred in AD 70, get my book, 70 Weeks Are Determined for the Resurrection. Go to my website, eschatology.org or BibleProphecy.com. Order the book, mention that you saw the offer on YouTube or Facebook, and I'll refund your shipping. Well, here we are. It's Thursday again. Lord willing, I'll see you again on Monday. In the meantime, you have a great, safe, and fantastic weekend. And Lord willing, we'll see you on Monday.